The roar of the sky, German flak and the Allied bombing campaigns of World War II. During World War II, Allied bombers soaring over Nazi-occupied Europe braved more than just enemy fighter planes. They had to fly through deadly skies lit up by bursts of flak, short for Flugabwehrkanonen, the German word for anti-aircraft guns. These cannons, whether stationed on rooftops, city outskirts, or towering concrete fortresses known as flak towers, formed the backbone of Germany's air defense. At a time when missiles didn't yet exist to intercept high-speed aircraft, these ground-based guns were a city's first and often only shield against bombing raids. Among the most feared of these weapons were the 88mm Flak 36 and Flak 41. These powerful guns could unleash up to 25 shells per minute, many of which exploded at preset altitudes, scattering lethal fragments in all directions. Picture a grenade bursting mid-air, that's flak. Not only did the blast damage planes, but the flying shrapnel could tear through wings, engines, and cockpits. Types of flak shells. Flak rounds often combined explosives with incendiary materials and came in two early types. Impact shells, which exploded upon direct hit, were common in smaller guns, 20 to 40 millimeters. These fired so rapidly that precise timing wasn't practical. Timed shells, used in larger guns, 75 to 120 millimeters, were set to detonate at specific altitudes or ranges. Filling the sky with deadly fragments even without a direct hit, timed rounds were generally more effective, especially when it was hard to hit fast-moving aircraft directly. But they weren't perfect. If a bomber veered off course even slightly, the shell might explode too early or too late. This challenge led to the development of proximity fuses by the Allies, smart fuses that exploded when an aircraft came within a certain range, greatly increasing accuracy. While Germany developed over 30 such designs, none were deployed in time, black smoke and danger. When flak shells exploded, they left behind dramatic plumes of black smoke, visual warnings that Allied pilots had entered a danger zone. These plumes helped bombers estimate how close they were to ground defenses before starting their bombing runs. To direct this storm of firepower, German crews used an advanced fire control computer called the Kommandozgerät. Introduced in the 1920s and upgraded throughout the war, it could synchronize multiple guns with impressive accuracy. One command team of just 5 men could aim an entire battery of guns at a single target, eliminating the need for trained operators on every weapon. Spotting and aiming, flak crews relied on optical instruments, radar, and even sound detectors to track enemy planes. While German radar couldn't precisely guide the guns, it was good enough to help line up optical targeting systems during the day. At night, radar guided searchlights to find planes, and the rest of the aiming was done by eye. Crews tried to create what they called a flak box, a deadly trap of bursting shells in a bomber's path. They calculated where enemy planes would be using radar, observation, and intelligence, then fired ahead of their projected course. If timed just right, a bomber would fly straight into a cloud of deadly shrapnel. The fortress guns, flak towers, Germany built towering concrete bunkers known as Hochbunker, or high bunkers, also called flak towers. Some rose 6 stories high and housed groups of heavy guns in 4-gun configurations, each aimed with a device called a predictor, which calculated a plane's future position. Each gun was paired with searchlights and sound locators, which could detect engine noise up to 6,000 yards away. However, sound took time to travel, so targets were often located about a mile behind where they really were, something gunners had to adjust for. When crews spotted an aircraft, they fired salvos, groups of shells intended to explode in a 60-yard diameter sphere. A single 88mm shell could climb as high as 20,000 feet and destroy a plane within a 30-yard radius. Even outside that, shrapnel could inflict serious damage up to 200 yards away. To boost firepower, Germany increased battery sizes, sometimes from 4 guns to 8. In high-priority areas, they built Grossbatterien, massive groupings of up to 40 heavy guns. These used deadly box barrages, rectangular spreads of exploding shells that no bomber wanted to fly through. A single fire control system could direct up to 18 guns at once. As the war went on, even heavier guns appeared. 105 mm, and the enormous 125 mm, the largest of them all. The Wall of Steel. By 1942, Germany had deployed over 15,000 88 mm guns, forming dense flak belts stretching across bombing routes into the Reich's industrial heartland, from the Netherlands through Belgium and into western Germany. In places, these belts were up to 20 kilometers thick. To avoid being hit, Allied bombers tried flying at higher altitudes and only dropping down when approaching targets. But the higher they flew, the easier they were to spot, and German gunners became extremely skilled at hitting them anyway. Later, American bomber crews began weaving, changing direction every 15 seconds. Since flak shells took around 20 seconds to reach bomber altitude, this made them harder to predict. Still, as Germany lost territory, flak guns became concentrated into smaller areas, creating terrifying zones of near-constant explosions. The battle for Luna. No place symbolized the threat of flak more than the massive chemical plant at Luna, Germany's most heavily defended industrial site. On July 28, 1944, over 600 US B-17s attacked it. Despite flying high, 7 bombers were shot down, and 217 were damaged by the intense flak barrage. Flying bombers became one of the most dangerous jobs in the war. While damaging or downing aircraft was important, the main goal of flak fire was to force bombers to drop their payloads from higher altitudes, reducing their accuracy. Every successful deflection helped protect German industry. Casualties and fear. The US 8th Air Force assigned crews to 25 missions, but most never made it to their 5th. In 1944 alone, flak destroyed 3,500 American planes, just 600 fewer than those lost to enemy fighters. The psychological toll was immense. Flight surgeons documented symptoms like sleeplessness, irritability, sudden rage, blurred vision, and dramatic weight loss among returning crews. The constant threat of being torn from the sky haunted every mission. On the night of March 24, 1944, over Berlin, German flak downed 50 of the 72 RAF bombers. In another attack on Merseburg in November, 56 B-17s were destroyed or crippled by flak alone. The RAF Bomber Command reported a staggering 44% death rate, with thousands more wounded or captured. In the end, flak was more than just a physical weapon, it was psychological warfare. It darkened the skies with smoke, terrorized the men in the air, and stood as one of the most formidable barriers faced by Allied forces in their mission to bring Nazi Germany to its knees.